Hello everyone. This is Oliver. Welcome to my podcast channel, Dreamland Notes. The story takes place in Pennsylvania, located in the northeast of the United States, rich in mineral resources, and the second largest coal producer in the country. In the western part of Pennsylvania, there is a facility called Western Prison, located 5 kilometers west of downtown Pittsburgh. It is the first prison west of the Atlantic coastal plain. The prison was designed by the Philadelphia architect Haviland and began construction in the 19th century, but it wasn't officially put into use until 1882. The Western Prison, also known as the Copper Wall due to its impregnability, is surrounded by 12-meter-high walls that are difficult to climb. In addition, guard towers are set up in all 4 directions, with guards stationed 24 hours a day, closely monitoring the movements of the prisoners. Those released from here generally believe that it is not a place for humans, and it was once considered the highest security level in Pennsylvania. Escaping from this prison was almost considered an impossible task. However, in 1997, 6 prisoners carried out an escape operation after thorough preparation. Could they succeed? Next, I will tell you the story of this prison break. The protagonist of the story is named Pontes. He was born in Pittsburgh, aged 30 at the time of the incident, and was formerly an employee of a publicly listed company with a stable job. When he was young, Pontes accidentally learned the password to the company's safe. Tempted by money, Pontes and 2 other colleagues planned to steal the money from the safe. However, they were discovered during the operation, and Pontes accidentally injured someone. Pontes came from a middle-class family and has received a good education since childhood. He felt extremely remorseful after committing a serious crime. However, in court, the other 2 colleagues, to protect themselves, all pointed to Pontes as the mastermind. In the end, Pontes was sentenced to at least 10 years in prison. He was a genius and successfully escaped from prison after serving 1 year, but was arrested by the police the following year. He was sentenced to 10 to 24 years in prison for his previous theft, assault, and current escape, and was subsequently imprisoned in Western Prison in Pittsburgh. Pontes knew from the beginning that this prison was not easy to stay in. It housed over 1,800 serious offenders, and fights and brawls often occurred. If involved, one could lose their life at any time. On the way to the prison, the guards escorting Pontes once half-jokingly asked him, "What is your goal at Western Prison?" Pontes remained silent for a while, then replied, "I want to escape." Upon hearing this, the guard couldn't help but laugh, thinking that such an idea was simply a pipe dream. After all, no one has escaped from Western Prison yet. However, Pontes firmly believed that he could escape from this prison. He knew he had to have a meticulous plan, and every step must be flawless. From the moment he entered the prison, Pontes lost his freedom and began his prison life. He felt extremely regretful, thinking that he should have had a bright future, but now he was in this hellhole because of greed. Life in prison was very routine, doing the same things every day, and even those with ideas would gradually become numb. And Pontes had to stay here for at least 10 years. At 7 o'clock every morning, the prison would ring the wake-up bell on time, and then everyone would go out for breakfast, followed by work at 8:30. Pontes was lucky. He had received a higher education and could work as a clerk in the prison factory, located in the north of the prison, near the wall, where there were sheet metal factories, laundries, and so on. His job was relatively easier than others, but he never gave up the idea of escaping. At 10:30 every morning, the prison would call the roll on time, and even during work, the guards would always be watching the prisoners. The most relaxing moment of the day was lunchtime when everyone could talk to each other. Pontes used this time to find potential escape partners. During this period, he met his first friend in prison, Burke Bauer. This person was imprisoned for murder and entered the prison a year earlier than Pontes. Burke Bauer was doing well in prison and had built some connections. Pontes saw this and actively befriended him, believing that Burke Bauer would help him someday. Day after day, Pontes roughly figured out the layout of the prison through observation and drew a floor plan in his mind. At 4:30 every afternoon was the prisoners' outdoor time, where they could move freely. Pontes used this time to carefully observe every corner of the prison, as well as the activities and patrol routes of every guard, remembering their inspection times and intervals. After 3 years in prison, Pontes had memorized all the information about Western Prison. He had been trying to find flaws in the prison, but he had never found any, which made him feel frustrated. One day, during the outdoor time, Pontes accidentally overheard a conversation between 2 prison guards and learned that there was a small space beneath a room near his workplace, which was very close to a warehouse outside the prison. This discovery excited Pontes immensely, as he finally found a breakthrough for his escape. As long as he could enter that small room, he could dig a tunnel, pass through the prison walls, and reach the outside warehouse to complete the escape. However, there was a lock outside the small room, and a guard unlocked and checked it every day during the outdoor time before locking it again. To enter that room, Pontes needed to obtain the key. The location of the small room was very close to the outdoor area, so Pontes used the outdoor time every day to observe the guard who unlocked the door. He found that all the keys were strung on a keychain hanging from the guard's waist, with a golden key on the outermost side. In the days that followed, Pontes racked his brains on how to get that key, but the guard was very cautious, always keeping the keys close to him, presenting no opportunity to snatch them. Just when Pontes was at his wit's end, he accidentally discovered his bite marks on a disposable coffee cup. It turned out that the cup was made of soft plastic, was very malleable, and easily left impressions. This discovery gave him a brilliant idea. If he could imprint the shape of the key on the cup, he could make an exact copy of the key. Pontes first told his entire escape plan to his friend Birkbauer. Birkbauer was surprised at first, then expressed his agreement, thinking Pontes was a genius. But to imprint the shape of the key on the cup, they needed to approach the guard without arousing suspicion, which was not easy. After careful consideration, Birkbauer decided to use his connections and stage a good show in front of the guard. In Western Prison, cigarettes were a valuable currency, and Birkbauer bought the cooperation of 2 inmates with 2 packs of cigarettes to help him with the act. Like the prisoners, the guards in the prison had fixed duties every day. The guard with the key would also patrol the small room during outdoor time. After several days of planning, during one outdoor period, Pontes decided to take action. After the guard locked the door and left, the 2 inmates who were brought off rushed to the guard and started pretending to have a conflict, arguing loudly and even grabbing the guard's hand to seek justice, causing a chaotic scene. Seeing this, the guard hurriedly tried to calm them down, but they continued to be unreasonable, seemingly about to start a fight. At this moment, Pontes, standing nearby, seized the opportunity and approached. He began pretending to intervene in the conflict but focused on the key. Amidst the pushing and shoving, Pontes discreetly took out the pre-prepared shards of the cup, held them in his palm, and reached for the key. With the guard's attention completely absorbed by the 2 inmates, he didn't notice Pontes' actions. And so, Pontes successfully imprinted the shape of the key onto the cup shard. To avoid raising suspicion, he never lowered his head during the whole process, pretending to be entirely focused on mediating the dispute. The act was a resounding success. Back in his cell, Pontes carefully observed the cup shard, finding the shape of the key very clear on it, which excited him greatly. However, he knew that he couldn't complete the escape alone, he needed more people to help him. Thus, he began selecting suitable candidates within the prison. Lunchtime became the best opportunity for him to understand everyone. Nobody knew what Pontes was up to, so he searched for those who could assist him. Besides possessing special skills, the most important criterion was absolute reliability, ensuring they wouldn't leak his secrets. After a month of selection, he chose 5 prisoners. Keller, sentenced to life imprisonment for murder, was responsible for transporting goods in the prison and could move freely. Pontes saw this as an advantage and recruited him into the team. Conrad, also sentenced to life imprisonment for murder, worked in the prison sheet metal factory and could easily obtain brass, the material needed to forge the key, due to his position. Therefore, he naturally joined the escape team. Heim was sentenced to 4 to 15 years in prison for robbery and had worked in an auto repair shop before incarceration. He possessed a special skill, starting cars without keys, which would prove invaluable after they escaped from prison. Billingsley, sentenced to 23 to 77 years for robbery and other charges, had previous experience as a miner, making tunneling and key forging effortless for him. He was successfully recruited by Pontes into the team. The last member was Pontes' close friend, Birkbauer, sentenced to 10 to 20 years for robbery. They had become like brothers since Pontes' incarceration, and Birkbauer had always wholeheartedly supported Pontes' escape plan, so naturally, Pontes wanted him on board. Under Pontes' organization, the 6-person escape team was officially established. During lunchtime, Pontes secretly handed a cup shard imprinted with the key shape to Billingsley and instructed him to cast the key as soon as possible. Billingsley did not disappoint. In less than 2 days, he delivered the cast key to Pontes. To test if the key could open the small room, Pontes needed to take a risk and try to unlock the door during a daytime outdoor time when all guards were distracted. After careful consideration, Pontes deemed it too dangerous, as all guards would be more vigilant during that time, and the guard towers would overlook the entire ground. Going for it at lunchtime, when most prisoners were in the cafeteria, seemed more feasible. Pretending to go to the restroom, Pontes arrived near the small room. As it was lunchtime, the guards were somewhat lax, with only one guard patrolling the middle of the perimeter wall from the 4 guard towers. The wall's height was slightly lower than the guard towers, making the door invisible from the towers but visible from atop them. Observing, Pontes noticed that the guard on the wall took 17 seconds for each round, after which he would ascend to the tower. Thus, Pontes had 17 seconds to attempt unlocking the door with the key. Seizing the moment, he swiftly approached the door and took out the key, silently counting down in his mind. However, to his horror, he discovered a fatal flaw: the key couldn't turn after insertion. Time ticked away, Pontes' heartbeat raced, and the key lock remained unopened, rendering all preparation seemingly futile. Just as he was about to give up, the lock suddenly clicked open. Pontes felt a mix of shock and joy, quickly locking the door and leaving. He had timed it perfectly. No guard had noticed his actions, meaning he was one step closer to the final escape. In the following days, Pontes and his teammates worked together, utilizing lunch breaks to enter the small room, with one keeping watch outside. After lunch, they would release the 2 inside, with Birkbauer providing support. Through prison connections, they acquired safety helmets, flashlights, and tools needed for tunneling. Inside the room, they encountered a tricky problem: the underground space lay beneath a solid reinforced concrete floor, making drilling noisy and prone to detection by patrolling guards outside. However, Pontes noticed loose soil on the wall, realizing the prison's construction featured double-sided walls, giving him a new idea. Since drilling through the floor was impractical, they opted to break through the interior wall and start tunneling downward. But first, they had to punch a hole in the wall, a move sure to create noise and attract attention. Pontes, unwilling to give up, decided to take the risk. They began hammering the wall, all nervously anticipating discovery. As the bricks gradually loosened, they commenced tunneling. Fortunately, they remained undetected. After each session, they discreetly carried soil and rocks in their clothes, discarding them unnoticed. Thus, the 6 members of the team utilized their lunch breaks to work on their respective tasks, taking turns entering the small room to dig. Due to his job convenience, Keller could move freely anywhere in the prison without raising suspicion from guards. Each time, he stood watch outside, swapping out the individuals inside the room when time was up. Pontes understood that in a place like a prison with almost no secrets, their escape plan needed to be completed swiftly to minimize the risk of exposure. They managed to dig approximately 2 to 3 meters each day. To expedite the process, they stole tools from the factory without detection. As the tunnel grew deeper, the risk of collapse increased, and they realized that if they were buried, no one would come to their rescue. They could only hope that Billingsley, with his mining experience, could successfully dig their escape route. Everyone eagerly anticipated the former miners' ability to carve out their path to freedom. After some time, they finally dug the tunnel beneath the prison's outer wall, filled with determination to escape. However, just when they were filled with hope, disaster struck. While Pontes was having lunch, the prison alarm suddenly blared. He feared their plan had been exposed. Guards summoned everyone outside the cafeteria for a sudden roll call. A new rule mandated a post-lunch headcount for all inmates before returning to their cells. Caught off guard, Pontes' teammates were still in the small room tunneling, unaware of the situation. Pontes panicked. If guards noticed their absence during roll call, it would spell disaster. Frantically, he dashed towards the small room. Just as he was about to arrive, a guard spotted him and ordered him to return for a roll call. Pontes fabricated an excuse, claiming he forgot to turn off the machine he was working on and needed to go back. Luckily, the guard was preoccupied and let Pontes go after instructing him to hurry back. Pontes seized the opportunity and quickly reached the small room, alerting the teammates digging the tunnel. In the nick of time, they all evacuated the small room. At that moment, a guard spotted them, but they hadn't yet wiped away the dirt on their faces due to the rushed exit. As they walked past the guard, each of their hearts was in their throat. Holding their breath, they pretended nothing was amiss, walking past the guard without raising any suspicion, smoothly evading detection. On January 7th, they finally reached the ground outside the warehouse, filled with euphoria. Pontes then brought out the prepared drilling machine and made several small holes in the concrete until they had a hole big enough for an adult to fit through. With the tunnel now complete, they were ready to execute their escape plan. To avoid complications, they decided to wait until the next day to act. That night, they were both excited and nervous. Pontes tossed and turned in his cell, unable to sleep, his body trembling uncontrollably. He imagined various scenarios that could unfold, from tunnel collapses to being discovered by guards, constantly rehearsing the upcoming actions, fearing any overlooked details. It was the longest night he had ever experienced. On January 8, 1997, a Wednesday, after 8 a.m., the team members all arrived at the small room at the agreed-upon time. Equipped with flashlights, they entered the tunnel one by one. Billingsley led the way, with Birkbauer bringing up the rear. The tunnel was cramped, dark, and damp, requiring everyone to extend their arms forward to pass through laboriously. However, these discomforts were trivial compared to the prospect of escape. Before long, they emerged, one by one, from the other end of the tunnel. Excitement surged among them as they eagerly opened the warehouse door. However, Pontes noticed a prison guard observing them from the watchtower. He hastily instructed everyone to put on safety helmets and pretend to be maintenance workers. Stressing the importance of maintaining composure, they proceeded calmly, with Pontes leading the way and the others following suit. To further the illusion of being maintenance workers, they even grabbed a map from the warehouse and casually walked out. Suddenly, the prison alarm blared, leaving them unsure of what to do. Had their escape been discovered? They were just steps away from leaving the prison. They couldn't afford to give up now. Steeling themselves, they continued towards the prison gates. Pontes then opened the gate, and to their relief, nothing happened. There were no guards in sight, and the alarm hadn't been triggered by their escape. Everything went smoothly, and they were free. The weather was exceptionally clear that day, and it felt like they had been reborn, breathing in the fresh air greedily. Oh, how unexpectedly beautiful everything seemed. They headed to a nearby parking lot, where Heim successfully started a car using a hot wire, and they drove away. Hours later, at 12:38 p.m., the Ritzburg police received a call from the Western prison reporting the successful daytime escape of 6 prisoners. Upon receiving the report, the police immediately mobilized forces, dividing them into two groups, one to track down the 6 fugitives and the other to investigate the Western Prison. Additionally, helicopters and police dogs were deployed for the manhunt outside the prison. Inside the Western Prison, amid the urgent alarm, a state of high alert was declared. Until the 6 prisoners were found, the prison would implement maximum security solitary confinement. Upon arriving at the Western Prison, the sight that greeted police left them dumbfounded. Never had they expected to find a 0.9-meter wide hole leading to a tunnel inside a tightly secured prison. The tunnel was dark, damp, and foul-smelling, with loose rocks overhead posing a constant collapse risk. The tunnel stretched over 18 meters, leading directly to the warehouse outside the prison. Climbing out through this narrow tunnel posed significant risks. With guards patrolling the prison 24/7, how did these prisoners manage it? After investigating, police quickly identified the 6 individuals: 30-year-old Pontes, 36-year-old Keller, 66-year-old Conrad, 26-year-old Heim, 30-year-old Billingsley, and 48-year-old Birkbauer. If nothing went wrong, these individuals would spend the rest of their lives in prison. Soon, the tracking officers made a discovery. In a parking lot near the prison, they found shattered glass, indicating that the 6 fugitives had reached this location, smashed a car window, and then fled in the vehicle. At 2:30 p.m., a report came in from someone whose van had gone missing. After making a delivery at a mall on January 9th, the van was parked in the underground parking lot, but it disappeared upon their return. According to the car license, police observed the van being stolen by 6 men who smashed the window with a rock. The Western Prison's 6 escaped prisoners became headline news, broadcast continuously on television stations across the United States. Indiana State Police quickly realized that these 6 individuals might be the escaped prisoners from the Western Prison. Based on this clue, and the van's license plate number, investigators learned that the 6 had remained together after escaping. By tracking the van's license plate number, police once again traced their escape route. However, the 6 were highly vigilant, changing the license plates each time they arrived at a new location. They managed to evade capture several times, slipping away from police's grasp. Following the prison break, the media extensively covered the event, with the faces of the 6 fugitives appearing on television screens daily, causing concern among the public, fearing that these individuals might invade their homes. 6 days after the incident, a phone call changed the course of the pursuit operation. A man reported that he and his friend had apprehended one of the escaped prisoners, Birkbauer. The caller stated that they saw a suspicious man at the Houston train station who appeared nervous and agitated, then suddenly collapsed on the ground, crying out in pain. They approached him to investigate and recognized him as an escaped convict. They immediately subdued him and called the authorities. Upon receiving the report, police rushed to the Houston train station and indeed found Birkbauer, though he was incoherent and exhibiting strange behavior. He crawled around on the ground as if mentally unstable. He was then taken to the hospital by the police. After examination, it was revealed that Birkbauer had consumed large amounts of illicit substances, causing his abnormal behavior. After some emergency treatment, Birkbauer managed to survive, though he remained unconscious for several hours in the hospital. Subsequently, police brought him to the interrogation room for questioning, but Birkbauer remained confused, speaking incoherently. Despite 3 hours of questioning, the police did not obtain any valuable leads. Houston is close to Mexico, and once they leave the United States, capturing them would become even more challenging. While Birkbauer did not provide any valuable clues, his consistent use of weave at the beginning of his sentences convinced police that the 6 individuals had remained together after leaving the prison rather than splitting up. With this in mind, finding one of the 5 remaining fugitives could potentially lead to the capture of all. On the 8th evening at 6:45, on the outskirts of Houston, a police officer was driving on Interstate 10, patrolling. Suddenly, a Lincoln car raced past them with 2 people inside. Because they were speeding and not wearing seat belts, the police decided to chase them to intercept them. Despite the police pursuit, the car ahead not only did not stop but also accelerated to escape, arousing suspicion. The officer immediately activated the siren. Shortly after, the car finally stopped on the roadside. The officer got out of the car immediately to conduct an inspection, but before they could approach, the car started again and drove off. The officer immediately drove after them again. During the chase, the car ahead suddenly braked, attempting to turn around and shake off the police car, but accidentally crashed into the bushes on the roadside. A man quickly jumped out of the car and ran towards the nearby woods. The officer pulled out his gun and ordered the man to stop, but he continued running into the woods without looking back, seizing the opportunity to escape. Another man was found unconscious in the driver's seat of the car. Upon identification, he turned out to be one of the escaped prisoners named Keller. So far, 2 of the 6 fugitives have been captured, while the other 4 remain at large. Keller woke up shortly after being taken to the hospital, and the police immediately began questioning him. Facing the police's questions, Keller appeared quite arrogant, proud of his successful escape. The investigators used this to their advantage, continuously praising him, causing Keller, in his moment of arrogance, to accidentally reveal an important clue. During their escape, a 35-year-old man named Anders had been helping them, providing contraband and money, and even assisting with forging documents. Anders lived in a trailer nearby, with a white elephant statue nearby, but Keller didn't know the exact address. As for the whereabouts of the other fugitives, Keller refused to betray them, dissuading the police from searching for them. Based on the clues provided by Keller, investigators actually found the trailer, located near Highway 19 on the outskirts of Houston, where there happened to be a white elephant statue. After confirming the exact location, the police took action. To avoid exposure, they chose to go undercover to investigate. Upon arrival, they found a red Ford car parked next to the trailer. Subsequently, they traced the owner of the car through the license plate number, but the owner was not Anders, it was someone else, presumably obtained by Anders through illegal means. Just then, a man walked out of the trailer, and it was Anders himself. To avoid being noticed by him, the police chose to stay in the car and observe. Later, Anders drove away in the Ford car, with the police following closely behind. Soon after, Anders drove the vehicle into the parking lot of the Pasadena Motor Lodge, completely unaware that he was being followed. After parking the car, Anders entered the Motor Lodge and headed to room 129 on the 2nd floor. The remaining 4 escaped prisoners were likely hiding in that room. 2 undercover officers stood in the corridor on the 2nd floor, pretending to wait for someone but actually keeping a close eye on that room. Just then, the door of room 129 suddenly opened, and the fugitives Hyam and Billingsley walked out, appearing very alert and looking around. Then, the 2 slowly walked towards the undercover officers. As the distance between them decreased, the police decisively pulled out their guns and arrested the 2. Although the 2 had remained vigilant, they never expected the police to show up so quickly. Subsequently, the 2 were taken away by the police. However, the situation inside room 129 was still unclear, and the people inside might be armed. Shortly afterward, additional police forces arrived on the scene, and they surrounded the entire Motor Lodge. Later, the door of room 129 opened from the inside, revealing Pontes, one of the fugitives, poking his head out and looking around in disbelief. The police then arrested him, followed by the arrest of Connor and Anders inside the room. Inside the room, they found several blank driver's licenses, firearms and ammunition, and contraband. With this, all 6 fugitives were apprehended. During the interrogation, everyone pointed fingers at Pontes. They claimed that all of this was Pontes' idea and that the entire escape plan was masterminded by him, while the others just followed orders. Initially, they had underestimated Pontes, but they didn't expect the escape to succeed. In response to the accusations from the others, Pontes readily admitted that he had indeed planned the escape plan and expressed his surprise at being caught so quickly. They were just a step away from escaping to Mexico and regaining their freedom. When asked by the police when he started thinking about escaping, Pontes answered bluntly, "Since the moment I walked into the prison." He told the police that the Western prison was simply not a place for humans, and he had been thinking about leaving there every moment. After listening to Pontes' entire escape process, everyone present secretly admired his wisdom. Subsequently, investigators asked about his whereabouts after escaping from prison and his relationship with Andres. Pontes claimed that he didn't even know Andres. After leaving the prison, they first escaped to Oklahoma. Keller mentioned that he had a friend named Andres who lived in Houston, Texas, and was a very capable person who could help them forge documents and provide shelter. So they came to Houston and met Andres, who was very enthusiastic. Not only did he help them find a hotel, but he also gave them a lot of cash. After the fake documents were ready, they could escape to Mexico and start a new life there. This rare freedom made them very happy. They drank and played cards in the motor lodge, waiting for Andres to deliver the fake documents. They had never been so happy before. But Borkbauer couldn't stand it. He left the hotel alone while everyone else was sleeping. 2 days after being arrested at the Houston train station, Pontes and Keller encountered a police check while driving out to purchase supplies. Out of fear, they chose to drive away. However, in their panic, they accidentally drove into a dead end, causing the car to lose control and crash. In the accident, Keller was knocked unconscious, while Pontes managed to flee the scene alone. Upon returning to the hotel, they realized the situation was dire and decided to leave Houston immediately, urging Andres to deliver the forged documents to the hotel as soon as possible. Unfortunately, it was too late, and they ultimately couldn't escape the law's grasp. After a thorough investigation, the police confirmed Pontes as the mastermind behind the entire prison break. For safety reasons, he was held in solitary confinement and couldn't leave the cell for 24 hours, only getting 1 hour of recreation time every Friday. The other 5 fugitives also faced trial and were sent back to Western prison to continue their sentences. Andres, who assisted in their escape, was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Following this incident, the Western prison underwent significant reforms. The prison authorities strengthened security measures and implemented stricter regulations on the tools used by prisoners in their work to prevent similar incidents from happening again.